Hello everyone, welcome to this first lecture of the course Introduction to Data Structures in C and C++. So in this course we are gonna cover like what data structures are and how to use them for different tasks. And so this course will be important for your placements, university exams, etc. So the primary focus of this course is under studying about the underlying concept of data structures and algorithms. So for our course, we'll use C and C++, but this implementation of the concept that we have studied can be applied for any other course itself. Okay, so before we go into the data structures part, let's start with the basic concept of the programming language key. Exactly what is a program and how does the programs work? Like how can you write a simple program in different various languages? So, and you already know about C, so we'll continue with that only. Okay. So, but instead of C exactly, we will for this course we'll use C++, which is kind of similar to C. So, anything that you have studied in the C can also be applied in C++. So, exact code of C can also be run in the C++, and it won't be given error or something like that because this C++ is just like an extension to C. Okay, so before we start talking about the various syntax of the C++, so let's talk about first key what exactly the programming is. So if we think about a computer, the computer can be thought of as a black box, a very high computational black box which can do lots of computation, like millions of computations within a second. But that's all a computer is. It's a black box or a powerful device which can do the computations at very high speed, but it doesn't take its own decision. You need for us to do or for a computer to do something, a programmer, a person need to describe what the computer needs to do. For example, if we take an example of key, we want computer to take two inputs or two numbers and give the sum of those कि what's the sum कि दोनों inputs को add करने के बाद जो result आ रहा है the computer should return that result. So compute now how can we tell that to a computer? So that's where this programming language change comes in. So there has been like hundreds of programming languages which are like one thing that can be done in one programming language can also be done in another programming language, maybe in a very simple manner or more complex manner also. So the image you are seeing here, right side, this is just one simple example of C++ code, which tells the computer to take two inputs as two integers or two numbers as an input and gives the output which the sum of those two numbers to the user. So we'll go over the syntax of what the first line does, the second line, and every other line in the code. We'll go over that in a brief in shortly, but this is one example of a simple C++ code which does takes two input as a sorry, two numbers as input and gives the sum of the other number. So sum of those numbers is out. Okay, so technically all the computers kind of run on a binary system. So if you talk about okay, so so what computers are simply like this big box must black box so which has the computation power of like billions of so this is like a billion this is a computer which can perform billions of instructions per computation power. So maybe like 10 to the power 6 instructions per second. So this many instructions can be performed by the computer in a second. So this is just one example. There are and much powerful computer exists in the world which can perform much more instructions per second. So now, so this is just a black box. Whatever input you give to a computer, whatever input you give, and based on the input and the instructions exactly क्या करना है, this computer will generate appropriate output. This is the entire idea of computer, right? Given the input and the instructions what need to be done, the computer will appropriately generate an appropriate output depending upon what we want the computer to do. Okay, so now technically this computer is since built of electric circuits. These circuits are these ones you have studied about, like logic gates. So if this is built of logic gates and all this, so this should work on some kind of electricity. So computer works on electricity, and so these logic gates are output of ones and zeros, right? The binary format. So our computers work on the binary, but okay. So now, but if we try to like, so technically, this is something what your computer see or what your computer can understand. This one sequence of ones and zeros, but this is not a human readable. If we give this sequence as a to a human and ask what is the sequence or what does it does, so it will be hard for a human to understand key exactly kya. But so that's why there's these programming language comes in, where as you can see this binary sequence is just equivalent to taking two numbers a and b which are 5 and 7 and printing or return computing the sum of those two numbers. So that's is just a simple C program, C++ program which can does this through. Okay, so this is exactly like this key, and this intermediate is something called a assembly language. So whenever you create a program in a high level programming language like C++, it will generate an assembly language, and then assembly language will be converted into this machine code. So this entire process is known as a like you write a high level programming language code like code, C++ or C code. It will be given to the compiler. The compiler is another program, like some popular compiler are GCC, G++, and it will convert this high level programming language code into the binary code which can be run by the computer. So this is the entire. We will not focus on how the compiler works and all this. So there is like separate course you might find in university which can give you an introduction to compilers. So we'll not focus on this. So now that we know what a programming language is, what a computer is, let's talk about let's get back to our main focus of C++. Why? So C++ is just an extension of a C programming language. So if you know this C already, then learning C++ will be quite easy for you. But if you don't know C, then also it's not much of a big of a deal. C++ is quite easy, and so we'll cover more of the syntax in this video, and rest you can follow as along the course goes on. So let's talk about one simple program, one simple C++ program. So let me simply show you this. Okay, so this is one simple C++ program. As you can see, the, every C++ program needs to be written in a file within the extension .cpp. So name of the file can be anything. For example, I have given it as a main.cpp, but you can give it as like temp.cpp or anything else you want to be. But the .cpp should be common. Every rest before dot you can give anything. After this the first line. This has include IOStream. So you might have already studied a similar line in the C, like has include IO Studio, stdio. So that is kind of similar to this line is kind of similar to that only. So what this line does, it takes this IOStream library and copies that code written inside this into this our main this code. So what's the code written in this IOStream library? So this IOStream library stores the code for handling input, taking input from the user, or giving something or giving output to the user. So this I for input and this O for output, the input output stream. So this is for taking input from the user and taking out. Another line that is important is using namespace std. So in C++, all the keywords or all the features are defined inside something called namespaces. So these namespaces can be can you can think of these namespaces as a containers which stores all these variable names or special keywords inside them. And for example, so if there are two containers, so to maintain a uniqueness, for example, let's say this is one container, right? One namespace standard. So it has all these like C out, C in. These keywords are defined inside this like int and all this. So but we can have another string. So now what if I want to do something? So in one container I can only have these as a unique. I can't define another int in here, right? Because then it will create two conflicts between these two. So I can't do this one, right? So I can't define two here. So but if I want to define another int, I can define another like temp. I can define another container temp and define the int here. So for example, so what's the difference between okay, so what's the difference between this int and this int? So this can for this int can be accessed using standard int, and this int can be accessed using temp int. This is known as the resolution operator, scope resolution operator. We'll not use that much in this course, but this is so our main focus will only be on this standard container, which is already defined in C++. And we are gonna use that only. That's why to include that standard to include that standard namespace, we use this using namespace std line in the, so you can think of it as a template for your C++ program and nothing else. Okay, and after that we have the main function, which is kind of like an entry point for every program in the C++. And after that, this cout line is used to print something on the terminal, and this return is, since main function is return 0, integer data. These concepts you must have seen already in the C. So that, so how can we run a C++ program on the terminal? For that, simply type g++ name of the file main.cpp, and so this will compile your code -o main. So this -o dot main is used to give our object file जो compiler के बाद में जो बन रही है, to give a separate or specific name other than the standard name a.out. So that's why we can use this -o main to rename that our object file. That's it, and it will create a, okay, let us simply delete this one first to give you more sense. So if you run this command and hit enter, you see that this main.out file has been created. So this contains the binary code for your file. You won't be able to open it in any browser, because since it's a binary, or it's a binary file which cannot be opened or doesn't support the encoding. Your text editor doesn't support the encoding to view those files. To run this program now, simply -main, the name of the output file or the object file, and that's it. And as you can see, it has printed hello world on the screen. So this is one simple C program. So this is where, this is just a include library or input output library. So this is input output library file. This is just a standard C++ namespace. And this is just a main function. This cout is used to print something on the output or on terminal, and this is how you write a comment on the C++. Let's go over other syntax of the C++ which you might be interested in, like a variable declaration. So to declare a variable, simply you need to know the data type, name of the variable, and the value if you want to give. For example, if you want to declare a variable int x, you can use the int x. So this, what it will do, it will create a variable x with the data type int, and then we can assign some value to the variable using like x equal to 4 plus 2. So it will evaluate 4 plus 2 first, and then assign the resultant value 6 into the x. So this is like initialization of the variable. We can print the variable on the terminal, anything on the terminal using cout. So it, as you can see, cout x by 3. So it will divide the x by 3 and print the resultant on the terminal, and this, then this space, then x times 2. So it will print x, will multiply x by 2 and print the resultant on the. And similarly, this, if you don't have to do it in two separate lines, we can do the declaration and initialization on the same line also. Int y equal to 3, and at the end don't forget to add the semicolons. Okay. There are various data types in this C++. Some of the common data types are character, integer, boolean, and double. So these are the few data types which we are mostly gonna focus, which will be the main focus of our course. But like this is the most of the data types you are gonna use. But there are few others also. For example, just say string is also there. So string is just a character array. Integer maybe there are three types of the data types: short, long int, boolean is there, double maybe just a float, you know. So this integer data types has three actually: short, int, and long. These are the short has the lowest range of the values, int has bigger range, and long has much bigger range. So if you want to store much bigger range values or like a large numbers, we should definitely use the long data type. Similarly, in case of floating points, we have the float, double, and long. Float with just the lower range, double the large range than float, and long double much more than double. If we want to take input from the user, simply we use this CIN. So this C in means input from the user, and C out means output from the user. So suppose we want to take an input from the user and store that input from into the X. So we write CIN arrow symbols, the greater than symbols, and X. So you can think of it like C input take is the CIN is taking input and redirecting that input to the X. And opposite is C out, which takes the input, takes the code, whatever value in the code, and gives it to the output or terminal. So this is so on C out the arrow is redirected in different direction. We have the if else. If else are like conditional statements. So whenever we want to make a decision in our code, we can do like it by comparing two values. For example, let's say there are two variables x equal to 6 and y equal to 2. So if x is greater than 5, we want to print x is greater than. So if x greater than y, x is greater than y. Else if y is greater than x, y is greater than x. Else both are equal. So which one will be printed here? Because x is greater than 6, because x is 6, sorry, x is 6 and y is 2, so x is greater than y. So C out x is greater than y will be printed. So this x is greater, this code, this statement will be executed, and this x is greater than y will be printed on the terminal. Okay. So this line will be printed on the terminal. Similarly, there is a switch case also, just like C you must have studied. The switch case takes an expression as an input, and depending upon which case this expression matches, it will print that line of code. तो फॉर एग्जाम्पल अगर ये एक्सप्रेशन जो आउटपुट है दिस कांस्टेंट 1 के इक्वल होता है तो देन इट विल एग्जीक्यूट दिस कोड until we see the break, and that's it. After that all these will not be executed. So for example, if you take an example of this x equal to 6, so this switch takes the x as an input, and if case 1, if it is equal to this expression x is equal to 1, then this will be printed, but since it is not equal to x, it will not be printed. Case 2, if it is equal to 2, do something here, whatever code we have written here will be printed. So there is no code, so do nothing at 10, and x equal to 3, then print this line. So this is not equal to 3 itself. So then at the end we have the default case also. Okay, if it doesn't matches any of these, then the code will enter to this one. So here it doesn't matches to any of those, so it will be printed this. Okay, x is not 1, 2, or 3. It's a 6, so it's not. We have all these like relational operators and logical operators: greater than symbol, greater than equal to, less than equal to, and not equal to. Then we have the and operator or and not operators. This you can use in our if else loops and all. Loops we have simple, just similar syntax to C programming or any other programming like Java. So while loop we have, do while loop is there. These are kind of similar. So loop, what's the purpose of loop? Loops are just to keep until this condition is satisfied, all this part of the code will be keep continuing executing or keep repeating until this condition gets false, right? So this for loop is there. This is just another similar to the C and C++. So C and Java. C++ is just like C itself. Everything that you can write in C can be written in C++ in exact same manner. We can do the nesting also. In one if else we can add another if else inside that, and so that you already done, like inside one for loop we can add another for loop, etc. Functions are there, so you can, the general syntax of the function is the return type of the function, name of the function, and the input parameters that we can give to the function. Then after that, whatever code you want to do, whatever function, the purpose of that function is the appropriate code should be written inside the function body, and at the end the return, if function returns anything, then depending upon the same return type the value should be returned to the outside when to the when the function is being called. Okay, so C++ allows multiple functions to have same name but different parameters. This is known as a function overloading. So for example, okay, so if a function doesn't have any return type, we simply add void as a return type to that function. So those are known as the void functions. So void is not technical. Void is void is not a data type, so you can't declare anything void. But void is a special keyword which can be used in front of a function to declare that this function doesn't have any data type at all. Sorry, any return type at all. Okay, so this is one, like int. So this function has the integer data type, integer return type, name of the function, two arguments, one base and another is exponent. Okay, then this is the function body. Whatever you want to do in the function, this will be written inside the function body, and at the end the result function is there, which can be returned by the return statement. So this will give you the, whoever is calling this function will need to store that return type somewhere. So this will return a value which can be stored here. Okay, so these are the functions. What is recursion? Recursion is simply a function calling themselves or itself. So this function, as you can see, Fibonacci, it is making a call to itself, Fibonacci n minus 2 with different set of parameters or different value of the parameters. So this is in recursion, a function keeps calling itself until we hit the base case. So there should be one base case where when this base case is satisfied, for example, n equal to 0 or n equal to 1, then this line will be executed and the recursion will terminate. Otherwise, if we don't add any base case to the recursive functions, we might encounter an error called stack overflow, because there will be so many function calls that your system memory will be full and it will give a memory overflow error. So this is one, stack overflow is one common error that is encountered when you recursive functions when you forget to add a base condition in a recursive function. So always make sure to add this base condition which will ensure that your recursion terminates, and after that this recursive calls of the function. So what this function does, it calculates the Fibonacci sequence till n. Arrays are there. Arrays are simply like a sequence memory. Arrays are what is a memory location. It's to understand arrays. Let me give you a more general idea about the array. So what happens is when you create a variable, for example, I have created this variable int x equal to 5. So what will happen if this is your computer memory, and this x will be stored somewhere here, and this x will store there. X will be like a label to this. So whenever I want to access this, I can simply use x as a, so for example, I do cout x. It will simply access this memory location, fetch this will be 5, and replace x with 5, and it will be printed 5. So this is how. But what if you want to store multiple such variables with the same data type? So that's where arrays comes in. So for example, let's suppose you wanted to store 5 numbers. So how can we store 5 numbers there in the memory? So one way is we can create like int x1, int x2, int x3, int x4, int x5. And okay, this is one perfectly valid example of storing 5 numbers. But then what if you wanted to store 100 numbers? Then what? Do we need to create this 100 times? This will become a kind of like a problem, right? So instead of that, we have something called arrays that can help us in these kind of scenarios where we want to store multiple variables. So what we can do, we can create an array integer nums of 5. So what this line will do, it will create an array. So arrays are simply like a continuous memory. So this will store or reserve a memory for 5 places. As you can see, this has stored and reserved a memory for 5 numbers in our computer, and this nums will point to here. This memory has the something called indices. First, so any number can be accessed using these indices. So if suppose if I want to set some values, so I can do something like this in nums. We wanted to at the time of declaration itself, for example 1 2 4 5, these are the 5 numbers you want to store. So this will do something like this. Okay, 1 2 4 5. Okay, so let's suppose I wanted to access the second number and change it to something else. So what you can do, nums 2, because the index is 2 for the third number. And instead of 4, I wanted it to 7. So I can do something like this. I can change it to 7. So this is how arrays work. Whenever you create an array, they will allow you to they will reserve a contiguous memory, and you can just store number of so there are various ways to so to create an array we simply use integer so यहाँ पे this integer can be anything so it's just simply data type of the array that you want to create name of the array this square brackets and this inside there you should pass the size की कितने size का array आपको create करना है कितने numbers आपको store करने हैं उस ताकि your computer can reserve the memory according to that so you can create array of integers you can create characters so an array can only have same number same type of data same type of variables or same type of data inside them so if integer can only have integer array can only have integers character array can have characters and so on okay for example we can create four side so we can set it either like this you can assign the values at the beginning of itself or if you don't want to give the size we can while declaring we can now just by doing this compiler will automatically check कि कितने numbers है and उसके basis पे it will fix the size of the array so this is how we declare the arrays in C++ just like this okay arrays can also be passed as argument to the functions these are done using pass by references okay we can create multi-dimensional arrays like so multi-dimensional like 2D arrays 3D arrays this will give you size of one dimension then size of another dimension for example what this will do it will create an array of two dimension which has the first dimension value this and first row and second row it's like a matrix with two rows and four columns string are simply the character arrays okay string you can be treated string can be treated as a character arrays in the C++. So you can either do some initialize like this. This is known as a string literal, or you can declare like this also, like normal arrays we had. Okay. What are pointers? Pointers are you can think of pointers as special variables. Okay, so what these are? Let me show you just a simple overview of the pointers. Okay, so when you create this integer x equal to 5 so what this did to our computer memory created a variable x and stored 5 there okay so but memory you can think of it as a large array memory is represented as a large array in the computer which has these small cells like the small cells having large so each memory cell has a address attached to those address is attached to those so that our computer can access that memory using that address so how can we if someone wants to know about that address how can we do that or want to store that address so to access this address I can use something called ampersand sign x so this will give me the address of memory where x is stored these addresses are usually integer addresses integers are there represented in hexadecimal format ठीक है तो now let's suppose कि मुझे इस एड्रेस को कहीं पे स्टोर करना था I wanted to store into means another variable so what I can do I can create a pointer ptr which stores this address of x. So now this pointer is another variable in the memory. So let's suppose that this address of this was 100. So now this pointer is another variable in the memory, ptr, which stores this 100. Why? Because this points to this memory location of the x. So that is what pointers are. Pointers are simply the special variables which stores the memory location or memory address of any other variable. Okay. So now let's suppose कि तो now this pointer, तो suppose मुझे इस x की value access करनी थी using pointer, तो what I can do, I can use this and this will give me what it will give, it will give the exactly 5 because this, so this is star operator is known as a dereference point operator, which can be used to dereference a pointer. Okay, so or if you simply use the, if you simply say ptr, then it will give you 100 because this ptr has stored 100 as inside. So this will give you the address of that memory location. Okay, so these are now the pointers. As you can see, this pointer stores the address of this memory location x. So you can create pointers like this. Any type of pointer you can create, any data type, which will store the address of that type of the variable. So we'll talk about these pointers when we go over the course in more details. Whenever we are gonna use it, we are gonna use these pointers a lot in the course. In lots of data structures, we are gonna use the pointers. So this is just a brief overview or introduction to the pointers. Okay, with this we are at the end of this lecture. So you can try out these exercises. I'll upload these slides on the course web page and check it out. Okay, thank you.